actually, our serious topic for today is, I think is one we may have touched on before, but it's hit the headlines again recently, and that is plagiarism in sermons. Anybody following recent events in the Southern Baptist Convention will know that the newly appointed president of the convention, Pastor Ed Litton, has been engulfed in a plagiarism scandal that, to put it politely, has made him a laughingstock.
Y'all, one of the worst Southern phrases is, bless his heart. Some of Jesus' strongest words in the Gospels were about people like this. In fact, he called them whitewashed tombs.
There have been a series of videos that have come out online where his sermons have been interspliced with the sermons of, among, I think the most prominent one is the former president of the Southern Baptist Convention, J.D. Greer.
The gospel message is not let the gay become straight. The gospel message is let the dead come alive.
Where repeated sections of sermons have been taken virtually word for word from the sermons of Greer.
John Piper says, if we claim to be forgiven by Jesus, but there is no sweetness of forgiveness or patience or love in our hearts for others, God's forgiveness is simply not there.
And it raises an interesting question, because Todd and I were talking before the program, and both of us agreed that neither, and this will come as no surprise to our listeners or anybody who's ever heard us preach, that neither of us has ever actually had an original thought in a sermon whatsoever. All of our sermons are profoundly dependent upon the wisdom of others. But there is a difference between building your sermon on the wisdom of others, using commentaries, listening to other people's sermons, seeing how they've handled the text, getting insights into what the biblical authors meant or what applications might be useful to draw from a particular passage. There's a difference between what I would regard as competent and appropriate sermon preparation to make sure that what you present to your people is worth hearing.
And some of you love messages, and we've talked about this in our preacher meeting. And my preacher boys here at our church, I love every one of them, and they are so helpful to this pastor. I'm telling you, they're helping me try to be a better preacher. But they also are growing in their capacity to preach, and I know you love hearing them, and I'm proud of them, but I want you to hear something. We had an interesting discussion a few weeks ago about me being more practical in my sermons, and I want to be more practical. But it led to this discussion.
For others of you, your interest in Christianity, I would say, is more of the practical variety.
See, some of you love messages that are practical.
Now, you want to know how God can help you
How to
have
have a better marriage.
How he can give you better kids. How you can have a more stable
family life.
How you can have a more fulfilling career. And so you love those messages.
And those are good things. But the
Bible is not
essentially a book of best spiritual practices.
The Bible is a book that is designed to
Leads us to wonder.
The stories we see in the Bible are not primarily of heroes that you're supposed to emulate.
To be heroic people that you can try to model and emulate your life after.
The point of all these stories is to give you a Savior that you are supposed to
Marvel
marvel and adore.
Yeah. And straightforward, to use the English vernacular, knocking off somebody else's sermon to save you some prep time during the week.